Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. In this video we will talk about functions in Python. This video is the part of Python for Beginners series. You can check all the videos collected in the link you can find in the right up corner. In this video we will review functions, how to write the functions and how to use them. So before we start, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you didn't do it yet. Here will be many more videos useful for beginner programmers and also for the programmers who would like to learn more. Just stay in touch and check other videos. So let's talk about functions. In Python, a function is the block of organized, reusable code that is used to perform a specific task. Functions allows you to break your program into smaller modular chunks. This makes your code easier to read, debug, and maintain. Although it wasn't made very formal, but we already used some functions in previous videos. For instance, we used the len built-in function to ask for the number of items in a collection object. So if you already checked these videos before, you probably remember. If you don't, please check the videos about strings, about lists or dictionaries. So we used these len functions to check the length of our string, for example. So in the result, if we would run it, you would get 4. So this is function. We already used it and you're familiar, but today we will talk more about how to write them. So you already know how to call a function, basically by adding parentheses after the function name. So just like that. It's mean call the function. The parentheses may optionally contain one or more object arguments to be passed assigned to the names in the function header. So for example, as I just did before, I passed the argument, which is our collection, which is string. And with this argument, we will use this function to check the length of this specific string. So in this video, we will explore more how to write a new function and of course write and then use it. But you should know that there is a lot of built-in Python functions that you could use and you don't need to rewrite them. You can use them because, as I told before, functions are made to make the code reusable. So functions are defined using the def keyword followed by the function name and a set of parentheses that may include parameters. The code inside a function is intended and start with the semicolon character. So here is an example for a simple function. So let's just write together a simple function. We will name it def. So this is the how we define the function. We write def. Then we write the function name. So for example, our function would name greet. The best case, good case to name the function, to name it in the way what it should do for your code. So our function will greet the user. So that is why I name it greet. And then we will need one parameter, which will be a name. So you would like to greet a user using his name. So this function greets the person passed in as a parameter. So then we have 4 spaces or 2 tabs or just 1 tab intended, and we can write what the function does. So our function just easy, we just write hello, then name, then I would ask how are you doing. So this is the simple function. So we just use def to define the function. We created the name, which is greet. We added this function. We'll use the parameter. For us, it would be name. So how to use the function? Now we can use it. Just writing greet, and then instead of name, we will leave the name that we want to greet. So for example, Tetiana, it's me. So greet Tetiana, and then just run and see what we have. So you see in the result we have hello Tetiana, how are you doing? I forgot the spaces, so it looks ugly. Let's run it again. Now better. So hello Tetiana, how are you doing? See, instead of this name we put Tetiana. So we just wrote and use this simple function. So the def statements create a function object and assign it to a name. In the example that you just see, greet is the function name and the name is our parameter. As with all compound Python statements, def consists of a header line followed by a block of statements, usually indented, or a simple statement, often the column. The statement block becomes the function's body, so this is function's body. This is what the function does. That is what the Python code executes each time function is called. So when the function is called, it's like that we did, the value passed as Tetiana is assigned to a name parameter. So now instead of name, we have Tetiana here. So we could even debug it and see. So you see that the name equals to Tetiana because we just put it here. And then this name is used in function code instead of name. So you can reuse this function again with a different name. So if you need to say hello to someone else, you don't need to write all the code all over again. You could just use this function but with a different parameter. So for example, let's greet someone else. We will greet Mike, for example. Mike. So now we will have, if we will run our code, we will see hello Tetiana and hello Mike. So we just called our function and everything that we did for Tetiana is done for the Mike. So we don't need to write the function again. We could just use it. This is the whole point of the functions. So value you pass in a function call argument. Match argument names in a function definition from left to right by default. So for flexibility, function calls can also pass arguments by the name. So for example, if we will add something so some more parameters. So for example, surname. We want to call name plus surname plus how are you doing? So now if we want to use this function, we need to add surname. So we could do it just like that with Tetiana. It would be Tetiana test, just a surname, and we will have Mike. And we could use the function differently. So we could pass the argument with the name. So for example, we could write that the name equal to Mike and surname is equal to, for example, Smith. Just like that. So you could use the function in this way or in this way. If you're using it in this way, make sure that you pass the argument in the proper order. So the first one is the name and the second one is the surname. If you're using it like that, the order doesn't matter. You could use it even like that. So surname first and then name. But you specified specifically which argument equals to which name. So if we call the function now, we need to put two arguments in the proper order. So name first and the surname last, or just pass them arguments by name, just like as we did here. So order doesn't matter here. So if you see, hello Tetiana, Mike Smith, I forgot again the spaces, but it's fine. How are you doing? So the whole idea is that, so this is the way how you can call functions with parameters. Some functions you don't need to call with parameters, you can just call them without parameters, depending what the function does. As in most programming languages, Python functions are the simplest way to package logic you may wish to use in more than one place and more than one time. Up until now, all the code we've been writing has run immediately. Function allow us to group and generalize code to be used arbitrarily many times later. So you could use this function many times later. Functions also provide a tool for splitting systems into pieces that have well-defined roles. For instance, To make a pizza from scratch, you would start by mixing the dough, rolling it out, adding toppings, baking it, and so on. So if you were programming a pizza making robot, for example, functions will help you divide the overall make pizza task into chunks. So one function for each subtask in the process. So one function would be make a dough, then for example, make dough. So this is one function, and there is something there in the function. So here the description how to make it all, for example, I will just pass it to show. Then you would write the function roll out the dough and roll out, and after that some instruction. I would just leave a pass, so I need a pass to for the functions to work now. So and then you will just combine them. So you would write make a dough, roll out, and etc, and you will have the whole process divided in the functions. But then, for example, if you would need to do another pizza or pizza with different toppings and etc, you could use make a dough, roll out, put pepperoni, one function. For other pizza, you could use put mozzarella and etc. So you could divide all of the functions and reuse them. Functions can also return value using a return keywords. So for now, you see we just use print, but instead of print, we can use return statements. The Python return statements can show up anywhere in a function body. So when it reached, it ends the function call and sends the result back to the caller. The return statement consists of an optional object value expressions that gives the function result. If the value is omitted, then sends back a none. The return statement itself is optional too. If it's not present, the function exists when the control flow falls off the end of the function body. Technically, a function without a return statement also returns the non-object automatically. So here is some examples. So for example, we created a new function, which would be square. And we will have the parameter, which would be number. So this function will return the square of numbers. So something easy. So we would just write square equal to the number multiplied number, and then we will return square. So then we can use this function. So for example, square 5. Let's run it. And with the debugger, and let's just print it in the console so you would see what print square 5. So you see that we have the result now. So I just use print to print it here in the console. For working in the code, you don't need it. You would have the result of the function. So for example, let's just result equals to square 5, and then we will print the result. So if we will use a debugger here, you would see that our result, like what is returned, is 25, and then we will just print it. For example, if you just use this result and you have the result of your function, you can use it in some other function or for some other purposes and etc. So in this example, the function square takes a parameter number and returns its square by multiplying it by itself. The function called square 5 returns 25, which is then assigned to the variable result. So what I just did. So there is two sides, and also let me show you an example where the function returns none. So let's not write the return. So in this case, we will not return anything. So we will return none. So you will see that our result is none. But you could write the function without print or without return, and the result would be none. So there is two sides to the function picture definition. So it's when you create the function. So the def that creates a function and a call. And here is how we call the function. This is the way how we call the function. So an expression that tells Python to run the functions. So you can call the function anywhere in the code you need it. It's important to know that the function definition must be executed before it can be called. So you cannot call the function before you define it. So for example, if we didn't define our function before, we cannot call it. So you need to define it before calling, like here. So typically you would define the function to the top of your code before any calls to the function. So there are several reasons to use functions in Python. First one is reusability. So functions allows you to encapsulate a piece of code and reuse it throughout your program, reducing duplication and making your code more organized. So as we just did with Grid. So if you would need to read more than one person, you could just reuse the function, not to write all of the logic again. Then the next thing is abstraction. So functions provide a level of abstraction, hiding the implementation details from the user. This makes it easier to understand the code and make changes to the implementation less likely to affect the rest of the program. Then the next reason to use function is readability. So functions make your code easier to read by breaking it down into smaller, more manageable chunks. This makes it easier to debug and maintain, of course. So it would be much easier to debug this function and reuse it if you would, for example, want to add something else, then change it everywhere you need it. So if you would just change the function here, so for example, we will remove the surname, you could just remove the surname anywhere in the call you call this function, and that's all. So you don't need to change this part everywhere. Then modularity. So function allows you to divide the large programs into smaller, more manageable parts, like our example with pizza. So this makes it easier to write, test, and debug each part individually. Next reason to use it is testing. So functions make it easier to write automated tests, as you can test individual parts of the codes separately. The next thing is better error handling. So functions can be designed to handle errors in a specific way, making it easier to manage error conditions and improve the reliability of your code. So overall, functions are an essential tool to writing clean, maintainable, and scalable code in Python. So in this video, we just show a simple examples. I would really encourage you to start working and start doing the functions. Just you need to practice, just practice. I hope you get the idea behind the functions in Python. Stay in touch for future videos and don't forget to subscribe. You can leave all your questions in the comment section below, and I would gladly answer them. So remember, knowledge is our superpower.